The letter arrived on a Tuesday in early March. Plain white envelope, my mother's handwriting on the front, my name spelled out the way she'd always written it since I was a little girl. I held it for almost an hour before I opened it. I was sitting at the kitchen table in my small apartment 300 miles from Lancaster County, and I remember the afternoon light coming through the window and the sound of traffic outside, and my hands shaking so badly I could barely break the seal. When I finally read what was inside, I had to read it 3 times before the words made sense, not because they were complicated, because my mind refused to accept them. The letter was 4 sentences long, and with those 4 sentences, my mother, the woman who had rocked me to sleep, who had taught me to bake bread, who had stitched my wedding dress by hand, was telling me that she could no longer speak to me. Ever. If you want to go deeper, the full Amish Insider Guide is in the description. Before I tell you what that letter actually said and what happened in the weeks and months that followed, let me introduce myself. My name is Martha, and this is Hannah the Amish Girl, the channel where I share the truths about Amish life that most people will never hear from anyone else. If you want the real story, not the postcard version tourists see from their buggy rides, hit subscribe and like this video. And in the comments, tell me, what did you think shunning actually meant before you clicked on this video? I want to know, because I promise you, whatever you think it is, the reality is stranger, quieter, and more painful than you have imagined. Most people outside the Amish world have heard the word shunning. They've seen it dramatized on television. They picture something loud and public, a person being cast out at the front of a church, fingers pointing, doors slamming, a scene with music swelling. That is not what shunning is. Shunning, or meidung in our language, is not a single moment. It is not a scene. It is a slow, quiet, years-long withdrawal of every person you have ever loved. It is your mother setting a plate for you at a separate table when you visit. It is your father looking past your shoulder when you speak. It is your sisters walking out of a room when you enter. It is letters returned unopened. It is the silence on the other end of a phone call before the click. It is showing up at your grandfather's funeral and being asked to sit in the back. It is every small daily rejection repeated for the rest of your natural life. And it all begins with baptism. Here is something most people do not understand. Amish children are not born into the church. We are born into the culture, into the family, into the plain clothes and the horse and buggy and the Pennsylvania Dutch. But we are not members of the church until we choose to be. Baptism, in the old order. Amish tradition happens in your late teens, usually between 16 and 21. It is framed as the most important decision of your life. The bishop will tell you, the ministers will tell you, your parents will tell you that once you take those vows, they are forever. And if you break them, there are consequences. This is the part nobody explains clearly to a 17-year-old standing at the front of the church in a white prayer cap, trembling with what she believes is faith. The vow you are taking is not just a vow to God. It is a vow to the Ordnung, the unwritten rules of your specific church district. And the moment you are baptized, you have signed yourself into a contract that the community can enforce for the rest of your life. I was baptized at 18. I did not understand what I was signing. I do not believe most of us do. I was 26 when I left. I was already married by then, already had 1 baby girl, already spent years feeling the growing weight of a life I had never actively chosen. My husband Aaron was a kind man. That is important to say. He was not the reason I left. The reasons I left are harder to explain and would take another video entirely. But when I finally packed a small bag and walked out of our farmhouse at 4 a.m. with my daughter on my hip, I knew exactly what was coming. I had seen it happen to others. My cousin Sadie, shunned at 22. A boy from our youth group named Jonas, shunned at 24. I had watched their families perform the withdrawal in slow motion. I thought I was prepared. I was not prepared. The first week after I left, nothing happened. That is the strange part nobody tells you. There is no dramatic meeting, no formal announcement delivered to your door. The process is slow and procedural and almost bureaucratic in its coldness. First, the ministers come to the house, not to you, to your husband, to your parents. They ask questions. They try to understand if you might return. If you say you will come back and submit yourself to the church, there is a process called making confession, where you kneel before the congregation and ask forgiveness. If you do that, you are received back. If you refuse, the matter is brought before the full church on a communion Sunday. The members vote. The bishop announces the decision. And from that moment forward, you are under the ban. If you want to go deeper, the full Amish Insider Guide is in the description. Let me tell you what the ban actually means in daily life, because this is where it gets hard to hear. Under the ban, no baptized member of the church may eat at the same table as you. This is the rule that breaks families. My mother, if I came home to visit, could not share a meal with me. She could cook for me. She could set food in front of me. But she had to eat at a separate table, or after I had finished, or in another room entirely. Under the ban, no baptized member may accept anything directly from your hand. If I tried to hand my father a glass of water, he could not take it from me. I would have to set it down on the counter. He could pick it up from the counter. But my hand to his, that was forbidden. Under the ban, no baptized member may ride in a vehicle you are driving. Under the ban, no baptized member may do business with you. My brother, who owned a small woodworking shop, could not sell me a piece of furniture. Under the ban, no baptized member may accept money from you, even as a gift. If I tried to send my mother $100 for her birthday, she would be required by the church to return it. All of this is enforced not by locks or doors, but by the threat that any member who breaks these rules for you will themselves be placed under the ban. That is the genius and the cruelty of the system. The community polices itself. My mother does not shun me because she hates me. She shuns me because if she does not, she will lose everyone else. That letter on the Tuesday in March was her explaining this to me. 4 sentences. Martha, the church has placed you under the ban. I cannot write to you or receive your letters anymore. I love you, and I am praying for you to return. Please do not call the phone shanty. That was it. That was my mother saying goodbye to me in the only language the church allowed her to use. Here is what surprised me most about being shunned. It was not the big moments. I had braced myself for the big moments. The missing Christmases. The empty chair at my daughter's first birthday. I knew those would come. What broke me was the smallness of it, the texture of the silence, the way it seeped into every ordinary hour of every ordinary day. I would see a rhubarb pie recipe in a magazine and reach for the phone to call my mother before remembering. I would hear a hymn from the Ausbund in my head and want to ask my sister which verse came next. I would see a little girl in a blue dress at the grocery store and my eyes would fill because I had no one to tell. The shunning was not in the moments I expected. It was in every moment I did not expect. It lived in my kitchen, in my car, in my mind at 3 a.m. It was not an event, it was weather. My friend Rebecca left the community 2 years after I did. Our conversations during that period were the only thing that kept me sane. She described her shunning to me once in a way I have never forgotten. She said, "It is like being a ghost in the lives of the people who made you. They can see you, they just cannot let themselves look." If you want to go deeper, the full Amish Insider Guide is in the description. The first funeral was the hardest. My grandfather died when I had been out for a little over a year. He had been a quiet man, a farrier by trade, with hands like old leather and a laugh that sounded like a creak over stones. I had not been allowed to visit him while he was sick. When I heard he had passed, I drove the 300 miles home and walked into the house where I had been a child, and I did not know where to stand. My mother would not meet my eyes. My aunts turned their backs as I walked through the kitchen. I sat in the very last row at the funeral, behind all the baptized members, and watched my family grieve a man I had loved with my whole heart, from a distance that felt like a canyon. After the burial, I tried to hug my youngest sister. She stepped backward so fast she almost tripped. She was 11. She had been taught to do that. I drove home that night and sat in my car in my apartment parking lot for 2 hours before I could make myself go inside. This is what I want people to understand about shunning. It is not punishment for what you did. It is punishment for what you chose. In the Amish worldview, leaving is not a personal decision. It is a betrayal of every person who loves you, a rejection of their entire way of life, a declaration that you know better than the generations who came before. The shunning is not really about you. It is about them. It is about protecting the community from your example. If you can leave and be happy, others might leave too. And so every small cruelty, every turned back, every returned letter, is in service of a larger goal. They are demonstrating to themselves and to each other that leaving carries a cost too high to bear. That is the theology. Whether it is true or false is another question. I will tell you something I have never said publicly before. There was a moment in my second year out when I almost went back. Not because I missed the faith. I had already let go of much of that. I almost went back because I could not survive the silence. I drove to Lancaster County in the middle of a Thursday in February. I parked at the end of our long dirt lane. I sat there for 4 hours watching the farmhouse. I saw my mother come out to feed the chickens. I saw my father walk from the barn to the house. I saw the wash on the line, my sister's dresses, my brother's shirts, the simple plain fabric of a life I had walked away from. And I almost went up that lane. I almost knelt in front of the bishop. I almost said the words that would have ended my shunning and given me back my mother. I did not. I sat in that car until the sun went down, and then I turned around and drove home. I still do not know if that was the bravest or the most foolish thing I have ever done. Some nights I am not sure there is a difference. Therapy taught me a word I did not have before: ambiguous loss. It is what you experience when someone is still alive but permanently unavailable to you. They exist in the world, they breathe the same air, they remember your face, and you cannot reach them. Grief researchers say ambiguous loss is actually harder to process than death, because there is no closure, no ritual, no endpoint. You keep losing the person over and over, every holiday, every milestone, every time you reach for the phone. My therapist told me once that shunning is the manufactured production of ambiguous loss at scale. She did not say it cruelly. She said it the way a doctor names a disease. And something about having a name for it helped me breathe a little easier. If you want to go deeper, the full Amish Insider Guide is in the description. Not every story ends in total silence. I want to be honest about that. There are cracks in the system. A sister who sends a Christmas card with no return address. A brother who leaves a toy on your porch on your daughter's birthday and drives away before you see. A father who answers the phone shanty, hears your voice, and stays on the line for a full minute of silence before gently hanging up. I have received all 3 of these things over the years. They are small mercies. They are the evidence that the people who love you are still in there, still fighting the system in the only ways they know how. I do not take those cracks for granted. I know what they cost. And I have learned other things. I have learned that chosen family is real. That the friends I have made on the outside, other ex-Amish women, English women with open hearts, people who love me because of who I am, not because of who I was born to, are not a replacement for what I lost. But they are something. I have learned to cook the recipes my mother taught me and pass them to my daughter so that the line does not truly end. I have learned to say the prayers I still believe in and release the ones I do not. I have learned that the community that raised me was not all cruelty and not all love. It was both. Most human things are both. If you grew up in a world where belonging came with conditions you could not meet forever, I see you. If you have ever been in a room full of people who share your blood and still felt utterly alone, I see you. If you have ever lost someone who is still alive, I see you. Shunning is not what the movies showed you. It is not a dramatic cast-out. It is a quiet, daily, decades-long erasure performed by the people who taught you how to love, And surviving it is not about closure, it is about learning to carry the grief so that it does not carry you. Tell me in the comments what surprised you most about the reality of shunning. Tell me if you have ever lost someone who was still alive, in whatever form that took for you. And if you want to keep hearing the truths from behind the prayer cap, subscribe to Hannah the Amish Girl. I have so many more stories that have never been told. Until next time, remember that love is not supposed to be something you earn by staying silent. If you want to go deeper, the full Amish Insider Guide is in the description. Choose your freedoms wisely. They might just save your life.